Welcome to the Mom and podcast. We're your hosts, Suzanne Kearns
and Missy Stevens. We want to help you through everything that happens in the ellipses, from your professional life to your emotional health.
You're a mom and so much more. Let's figure out what comes next together.
Welcome to the Mom and podcast. I'm Missy Stevens, mom and writer, foster care advocate, and today, organizer of paperwork that sort of got away from me in the last week.
Is there any other kind of paperwork, really? I think that's it. And I'm Suzanne Kearns, mom and writer, LGBTQ and sex ed advocate. And today a receiver of text from my son that his school is on fire. So that has been interesting. And we'll see if we have any updates by the end of the show. Yeah, they're back in the school. So I guess we're good. Today
Hopefully there's no more fire.
I know. Texts are really a good and a bad thing. Yeah, I probably could have heard about it after school and it would have been fine.
Right.
Today we are welcoming Ericka Souter, mom and nationally recognized voice of the realm of parenting news and parenting advice, regularly featured on Good Morning America. She is the author of How to Have a Kid and a Life, a survival guide, which explores the 21st century parenting dilemma. When did being a good mom become synonymous with giving up everything that makes you you? I mean, is there anything nearer and dearer to our heart, Missy?
Nope.
Oh, her work also appears on parents.com, mom.com, Cafe Mom, and The Bump in What to Expect. She is a journalist with over 20 years of experience and has been on staff at both People Magazine and Us Weekly. Oh my gosh, how fun. Where she has written cover stories on everything from the sexiest man alive to the untimely death of Michael Jackson. Before becoming a magazine writer, Ericka took a short detour into the world of advertising, accepting a post at the Chicago-based agency Leo Burnett as an account executive on the Kellogg's account. Her ad world claim to fame, she was on the team that created the talking frosted mini wheat.
I love those guys.
Cool. A native of Ann Arbor, Michigan, she currently lives in Manhattan with her college sweetheart husband, Caleb, and sons Lex and Aiden. Welcome. We are so excited to have you here.
Welcome.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here, guys.
We appreciate it so much. And we have done your bio, your big bio, but we were wondering if you could give our listeners a little Ericka 101, especially if there's any twists and turns in your life that kind of led you where you are now.
Yeah. Well, as Suzanne said, I started out as a writer and a celebrity journalist, and it was an amazing career to have. I have to tell you, there's not a better job to have in your 20s than that. Like,
oh yeah,
I lived on the red carpet. My job was to go to parties and write about it and do interviews with celebrities, most beautiful, sexiest man, all that kind of stuff, which was great. That changed a lot. The allure changed a lot when I had kids. Mm-hmm. It was, I love being a writer. I love being a journalist. But celebrity journalism requires some late nights, some very late nights. And I remember being up, this is when I was at Us Weekly, waiting for Kim Kardashian's publicist to call me back to talk about how she got her butt to look so great in some gown she wore to some award show. And they were in LA, I was in New York, and it was like 2 or 3 in the morning. And I thought, oh my God, my baby is going to be up in 2 hours. And I just can't do this. And
can't talk about butts in the middle of the night anymore.
it just lost its allure for me. But it was such a great industry in terms of how interesting it was, and you always had work and that kind of thing. But it just and so I kind of reevaluated what I wanted to do. I still wanted to write and edit, and I got a job at Cafe Mom. And it was one of those things where people were like, you're crazy, you're leaving a staff position at a major magazine. And I was like, yeah, my life's got to that point. I'm not going to win a Pulitzer writing about, the real world or, television shows. It wasn't like, it just wasn't worth it to me to stay. And when I got to Cafe Mom, I was assigning and editing. We had writers all over the country, and they brought me in to kind of help teach them how to be journalists, how to write, not just blog.
Right.
So for me, I threw myself into it. I went to every mommy meetup I could, every, conference, mom.com, blog her, whatever. I went
Yeah.
there so I could just figure out what was going on in motherhood besides my own personal angst and stories and
Mhm.
complaints that I had.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I really loved it. I just it felt meaningful. It felt like I had a bond and a kinship even with the people I was interviewing or assigning stories to.
Yeah.
And that kind of led me on this path. But also while I was meeting all these moms, there was things that we were talking about because I'd have like one-on-ones and I'd even host focus groups in my apartment, if you can believe it. Like I'd have wine and some snacks and we'd just be talking about
That's
motherhood.
awesome.
I was gonna say, that
And
sounds amazing. Put us on your
oh,
invite list.
oh my God, it was so much fun. And we would just talk and my book came out of those conversations. I knew I wanted to write a book. I wasn't sure exactly what it was going to be about. Right. So, but my conversations with women, mothers who were struggling with things that we didn't often talk about, that's where all the chapters come from. And that's why all the chapters are different, right? They each
Yeah.
focus on a different issue that you're dealing with. So you may have an issue with the motherhood penalty at work, but you may not have one with like the sex with your husband. So yeah. And so you can pick and choose the chapters that really resonate with you and read them. Although I recommend you read the whole book
Yeah.
because it was such a great joy writing it. But
Well, and that's the thing, even though it may not resonate with you now, we talk a lot about seasons of your life. And I think
Right.
that, the job with the celebrities was perfect for your 20-year-old season of your life. And
mhm,
now this was right for you. But same thing, some of those chapters, you might be like, oh, no, that's not my problem. But then 1 year later,
right.
Yeah. Or
get
it
a
might be
little
your friend's
flashback.
problem and it gives you a lot of empathy into what she's going through or your
Mhm.
Yeah,
coworker. Or, we don't need to stay in our own little bubbles. We need
Yeah.
to
right,
see what's going on in other bubbles.
right. And that's
And
really important too, like having this perspective on motherhood that goes beyond what people told you at your baby shower, which is not nearly enough information.
oh my gosh.
No.
A wipe warmer is not going to save your sanity
Yeah.
3 months later. I'm just telling you that right now.
Yeah.
That is
Yeah. And
so
it's so fleeting the time in your life you need a wipes warmer. Like that's
yeah.
Yes,
And
there's a
you've
lot more to it.
you've been very upfront and honest about this idea, and actually had a wildly successful article about the mom gene and whether you were missing the mom gene.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
I I was just talking to a friend about this last night who she doesn't have kids. And she's like, oh, well, did you know you always wanted to be a mom? And I was like, oh, you should have seen Chris and I at those preparing to be a parent classes. Like everybody'd be holding their little fake baby doll and ours would be face down on the table.
Yeah.
And we'd be like, what? Like we just it was not in my DNA. I love my children and I don't know what I would do without them. But I didn't babysit. I didn't have younger siblings. I didn't feel that. So I just, for other people who out
Mm-hmm.
there who may be feeling shame associated with this, I'd love for you to just spend a little time talking about that, the mom gene, what it is, and how it's okay if maybe you didn't have yours embedded in you at birth.
Oh, the mom gene is so important to me, the whole concept of it, because that's really what kicked off this idea for me that we're talking about. There are so many things we're not talking about, and women are kind of embarrassed to admit. So I
Yeah.
wrote this post when I was at Cafe Mom on, is discovery of a mom gene the reason some of us don't crave having kids? And I wrote it because I was interested in it. And I thought there was research out of Rockefeller University that said there's this gene that activates at a certain time in your life. For some women, it's at puberty. For others, it could be in their 20s, at different times. And basically they found it in mice, and they hypothesized that women have the same gene. So I thought, well, gosh, maybe this is the reason. Like I've never like been desperate to have children, and so many people
Right.
around me want children. I remember one of my college roommates was saying like, her whole goal was to find a husband and have kids. And I'm like, yeah, but you're in the business school. Don't you want to like do something? Like, why
Yes.
isn't that your first goal? We're like 20. Oh my God. And so, and I was never that kid who played with Barbie doll. I played with Barbie dolls, but I never played with baby dolls. Like everyone was
Mm-mm.
playing like house at recess, and there was a mommy and a daddy. And I was like, whatever. My Barbies were in the Amazon solving mysteries with Scooby Doo.
Yeah.
And and you kind of feel that there's something a little wrong with you, like you're a little off. So I
Yep.
wrote this article about how I don't think I had mom gene. I've always been embarrassed to admit it because I have kids and I'm supposed to want kids, and it's supposed to be the most important thing in my life and something I wanted all my life. And the reaction I got was tremendous. So many women wrote in to me saying, oh my God, I don't think I have it either. Oh my God, I feel like I don't know what I'm doing. Because
Mhm.
there's so many things we're told that, oh, it's just natural. It'll kick in,
It's
you
not.
know. It's not. Breastfeeding was, and I wrote about this, it was like every time it was time to breastfeed, I heard the music from Psycho because I'm like, oh, my poor nipple. Oh my God. And nothing hardly comes out. This is awful. But there's this shame associated with it because we're supposed to just be able to do it. And I wanted to give women a little bit of solace and a little bit of camaraderie that if it's hard, it's okay, because it's actually hard for a lot more of us than the world wants us to think. So the mom gene, it was about like, there's no such thing as maternal instinct for everyone. Like, of course you love your kids, and we also feel required to say that every time we say something negative about mother. We're like, no, but I love my kids, I'm so grateful. No. And I do that too. But it's like, it's okay to admit that it's not so natural and not so easy. It doesn't mean you're not going to be a great mom. It just means you're going to get like a little real and honest about the struggle.
Yeah. There was a line that we love, and we've talked about it, that is, no matter their path to parenthood, they all shared one universal truth. What they desperately wanted and could not find were real, meaningful discussions about the confidence shaking, anxiety causing, and the what the hell happened to me, and why doesn't anyone see me anymore reality of becoming a mother.
Yes.
And we need to change it. You're doing it. What can our listeners do? Where do they start to really change the conversation and keep themselves in this picture?
Right. So I think it's the real shock when you first enter motherhood, right? You're like, there are all these things that you prep for. It's always about stuff. Our prep is always about stuff, like having the perfect crib and car seat and all of this. But we never talk about the other changes and the shifts that we have to have. So if you're in the throes of motherhood, you kind of already know that this is hard. This is, oh my God. If you have a friend who is thinking about having a child or who's pregnant or just had a baby a few weeks ago, have an honest conversation with her, but not just like to scare her.
This is terrible.
I know we don't want it to be like to turn back, but
the great parenting resignation. We don't want it to be like this, like, okay, no one wants to be parents anymore. But also say, but this is how you can protect yourself. Or this is how, like, oh, this may happen, but here's how, like, I got through it, or I got this, or here's what I found that might help us both. So I think it's like having this, I felt like I was like completely hoodwinked. Like one of my close friends, she had a baby and her child was 2 and I had mine. And she never once told me anything remotely scary, or I want to use the word negative, but she never told me any of the hardships. And then after I had mine and I'm complaining, she's like, oh girl, yes, like blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, why didn't you tell me before? So at least I knew. And it's not like we're naive, because what we're preparing for, the hardships we prepare for are the sleepless nights, never being able to pee alone again, like all of that stuff.
Yes.
But then no one ever tells you like what touched out means, right? Where you may have points in your day where you are so tired at the end of the day, you don't want anyone else touching you, including your partner, because you have just given so much of yourself all throughout the day. And that's like a real thing, and that affects relationships. And so it's basically having these honest conversations. And sometimes it's hard to know what those conversations are, which is why I wrote the book. But it's like just getting real about the experience and not sugarcoating it, but also saying like, girl, we got this together, showing some camaraderie, saying, that you're going to be there, not just for like the cute play date in the park where everyone's like fawning over their kid, but it's like, oh girl, come over so we can just like, let loose and just get real.
Yeah. And that's so important, because it's such an isolating time, especially that first year or so. It can be really isolating. And just in case, I don't even know if I said it at the very beginning, except for your intro. So the book is called How to Have a Kid and a Life, a Survival Guide. So, I mean, that just nails it. And it really should be mandatory reading for
It really should. And I wish I had it. I felt so lonely and so broken. Like I was doing this all wrong. And since then, I've talked to many people who had similar experiences. I know a lot of my experiences were so normal. Touched out was a huge one. I mean, I was just like, give me a box. I need to be like away from all of this. I had no idea that was coming. It's just, that was one of many things. And
even touched differently. I remember the first time I went and got my hair cut, and my hairdresser like shampooed my hair.
Did you
and
cry?
it was being touched, but just for me, not like anyone like I need Just touches for the other person is like, no, she doesn't want anything out of rubbing my head except for to clean my hair and like make it a really relaxing experience. And
I wept in a
I know,
massage once that I was
crying.
like, oh my God, this feels so good. And I don't have to do anything in return.
Oh,
Yes.
it's like bliss what you're describing to me right now. Like
I
it's
know.
just, and I feel like we need to, I think that the culture a little bit about talking about motherhood has changed where it's okay now to complain more about it. But what I also found within that culture, there aren't a lot of solutions. It's like, I read every book out there, and there's some of these are really funny, the kind of complaint essay books.
Right.
But then it's like, okay, well, that doesn't help you feel less lonely at the end of the day or less overwhelmed. And I feel like we have this epidemic of what I call mommy malaise, where women are unhappy and they don't understand why. Because they have their kids, they may have a partner or a significant other, or feel good about what they've created, like their family, but there's still something else missing, and then they don't feel comfortable saying that, and they just kind of languish out there. Because it is weird that you can feel lonely and still be around people all the time, because your kids, a lot of people have their kids with them all day, especially if they're little and they're not in school, but they're still lonely and unhappy because of that. You need connection with people who don't live in your home.
And that mommy malaise, I nearly fell out of my chair when I got to the part of your book where it was talking about the research that a mom's satisfaction with her life is more important to a child's social and emotional skills than how much money she has, the amount of time she spends with them, or whether she is staying at home with them or going to work. I mean, bold, highlight, flashing lights, happiness matters. And I don't mean like happy, like, oh, you had a really shitty day, but put on that smile. I mean, but like a real lack of malaise with how your life is.
Right.
But I think, okay, so there's kind of, again, I take a few paragraphs to get to my question. But,
No, good. I love it.
But so, I mean, the first part of it is getting honest about if we are or aren't happy. Like, I don't think a lot of moms just sit with that and be like, am I happy? Like,
it feels real
feel
bad.
like, oh, I've got,
it does.
Especially in the case if you have a happy, healthy child and you feel like there's all these things that you're supposed to be grateful for, and but if you're just not quite feeling on it. So like, love your thoughts about how you personally or whatever, like, got honest or really checked in with yourself about if you're happy. And then how do we focus more on that once we find out if we are or aren't?
Right. Well, I think I think that there are 6 questions that every woman, every mom, actually every person could ask themselves these questions. But of course, I focused on moms, and I'm going to go through them if that's okay.
Oh, please do. Yes. I was going to ask
we want you to. Yeah.
All right. So the first question is, am I nurturing my marriage or partnership? Okay. The next would be, is my career headed in a good direction? If you have a career outside, if you have a career. I can't say outside the home anymore because everyone works at home.
I know, we're all
right.
If you have a career.
Great.
Do I have supportive friends to turn to? Do I feel good about myself? Do I nurture any passions I had before kids? And the last one is, have I created a social life or hobbies that have nothing to do with my children? Right. So my theory is that if you answered no to any of those questions, you have to reevaluate your priorities. And I don't mean like leaving your family to go sell surfboards in Hawaii. That's not what I mean. I mean working on the things that are missing that make you happy. And so often we, as moms, we keep thinking like we give more and more and more of ourselves to our kids, to our partners, to our careers, to the school, to whatever it is that we have that needs us. But there should be a part of your day, your week, your month where you are doing something for yourself that has nothing to do with the wants and needs of other people. And we just don't do that.
We don't do it. I think culturally there's a huge stigma on that, because as you were listing these questions, I was putting myself back into the place I was in 14 to 16 years ago when I had little bitties, babies and toddlers. And I probably would have answered no to all of those questions. Maybe all of them at once, but definitely all of them at some point. And if I had said, I'm going to start putting myself first, and here's how I'm going to do it, I can think of Luckily, I had a super supportive partner, but I can think of other people in my life who might have been like, well, that's not what this time is for.
Right.
This is temporary. You
Yeah.
should just delight in these children you have right now, blah, 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 blah. And I would have felt so damn guilty
Yeah.
that I probably would have shoved it all back down, which is, I mean, that's where a lot of it
Mhm.
stayed, was shoved down for a long time. It took me a long time to put words to how I felt.
And, the breakthrough moment for me was, I don't think I wrote about this in the book, and I should have, but a girlfriend who's also a journalist, her job was to travel the country and review like five-star hotels. And, so she's like,
Mm.
you know what? I had this trip scheduled to wine country. All you need is to buy your ticket, and all of our meals, hotels, everything's taken care of. So I was like, oh, this sounds amazing. And my husband was
Man.
totally on board. He's like, that sounds great. He's knows how close I am to this friend. And so I scheduled the trip. And then a month later, he was like, wait, when is your trip? And I gave him the date. He's like, oh my God, that's Mother's Day weekend. And I didn't even realize it. And I was like, oh gosh. And he's like, are you going to cancel? And I was like, no, I'm not going to cancel because
No,
I've
I'm
already
the
bought a
mother
ticket.
here.
But I did feel guilty. His mother gave me such like, I can't believe you're missing Mother's Day with your
It's not
kids.
Kids Day, it's Mother's
And
Day.
And so, and I felt guilty, but I had promised her I was going. I went, and it was the best Mother's Day I've ever had,
Yeah.
because
Mhm.
it was completely about me and not about anyone else. And we just ate. We went to a winery. We went for a run. It wasn't like this like crazy blowout time, but it was just so nice. And that's when I was like, wait a minute, why am I feeling so guilty? Why do I feel so ashamed about
Mhm.
doing this for myself and being able to do this for myself? But that's the culture we live in, where even a day that's supposed to be about you is not even really
It's
about
not even about you.
Yes.
It's about other people
Ah.
being around you. So, and we'd had a makeup celebration the next weekend, and my son was little enough where he didn't,
Yeah.
They don't
pay that
know.
much
I mean,
attention.
and then they get big and they really don't care.
Yeah. So I was
And
like, whatever.
they would
Exactly.
never hold the same standards for Father's Day.
That is exactly what I was just
Yeah.
thinking. This
I
would
remember-
never happen.
I'm having a flashback to, is actually my very first viral post I ever wrote was about when my daughter was turning about 1 year old. I took my mom to Italy for a couple of weeks. And so left her with my in-laws, and her father was there. I mean, she was covered. She had people. I didn't just leave her in a pack and play and head off. But the
Here's
big
some
joke,
crackers.
yeah, the big joke about this post was like, it was making fun of the childcare instructions I'd left for my in-laws. I mean, it was like, cut blueberries in fourth, walk the dog north. I mean, it was just like
Oh my
ridiculous.
God.
But
First time mama.
so I thought that's what people were going to be commenting about. But then all these comments started coming like, how dare you leave your child when she was that young? And
Yeah.
don't you value the parenting bond? And I'm like, okay, did you notice the fact that I was going with my mom? Like, the parenting bond isn't just when they're
And you
infants.
left her with family
I know,
and like
Right.
being cared for.
but I was not ready. I was ready for people to, rake me across the coals for being really OCD with my instructions list. But I was like, really? She was 1 year old. She was with 3 capable adults.
And you've been bonding the crap out of things for a year. It's not like you were
I have
bonded.
bonded her. She has survived. She's okay. She's 16 now. She's good.
The standard that we have to live up to is just, sometimes it can feel soul crushing.
Yeah.
And it's just it's so hard. So when I first became a parent, and we'd go out to dinner with like my husband's boss and his wife or whatever. And, I remember one particular dinner, the boss's wife, who had 5 kids, and she was a much more experienced mom than me. She's like, how's motherhood going? And I was like 3 months in, and I was like, oh my God, I do not understand why people keep doing this. This is so hard. I am like drowning. And then, she kind of laughed and we went on. But then afterwards, my husband was like, oh my God, that was so embarrassing. Why did you say that? It makes you sound so ungrateful. And I thought, well, she asked me how I was doing, and that is how I'm doing.
Yes.
I'm struggling a little bit. So and my husband's amazing, greatest guy, super supportive, but even sometimes within your own support network,
Yeah.
you feel shamed. And I didn't feel like I could really talk to it until I started finding a mom tribe who I could relate to.
Yes.
And I write about that. It's like, it's not just about the closest mom in the vicinity. There's a very specific formula that you need to find the supportive friends that you need.
Yes. And I totally want to dive into that. But I'm really loving this idea of Jill Smokler, who was the founder of Scary
Mhm.
Mommy, was
Yeah.
just on a couple of weeks ago. And she had the same kind of thing where someone came to her and was like, oh, she had moved. I think she was moved to a new neighborhood.
It was like a new neighbor.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
this neighbor came to introduce and like, oh, how's it going? And she's like, oh, my kid is such an asshole. Like, they can really be dicks. And
The baby's an asshole.
Yeah. And this mom was just like, what? Like, how dare you not appreciate? So you bring up such an important point that when we are that stage of with our kids, pretty much the things you're limited to are like mommy and me classes. And
Yes.
I mean, we kind of evolve into this too, where, our kids then are in the first grade or the second grade and we hang out with the parents of whatever kid they happen to be clicking with.
Yes.
That may not indicate whether we like them or not. Just because you're in the same mommy and me Wednesday class does not mean that you're my people. So I would love to dive into that. You do such a beautiful job of discussing how just because you're here does not mean you are my person.
Yeah. And that's that's the solution we've been told, right? Just go someplace where there are other moms and you're going to bond and you're going to be friends. And we all do that. Like I did that too. And I remember, I think I wrote talking about, I was again honest about my breastfeeding journey. And the woman was so horrified. She never talked. I don't think I ever talked to her again. Like she found an excuse to walk away from me and start talking to other moms. And I was like, ooh, I guess we're not going to be
work.
BFFs. I guess not going to work. But I think the point is that you can make good friends with the parents of your kids' friends, but you have to develop your own independent relationship with them. You have to bond with them on another level other than watching them play. You have to have conversations. There's this formula, which I interviewed a friendship expert who's actually amazing. Her name's Shasta Nelson. And
I love what you had to say about her.
Is just about friendship. And she is she's absolutely amazing. And friendships in every area of your life, not just mom to mom, but it's just even workplace friendships. So anyway, she talked about this formula that is absolutely critical in order to find true friendship. And the first would be, there has to be positivity. So when you interact with these people, is it a positive interaction? Do you feel supported? Do you have a good time? Do you laugh? Do you joke? Do you share? It doesn't necessarily have to be all rosy all the time, but the point is, no matter what you're talking about, when you leave that interaction, you should feel more uplifted than when you came in, right? And you certainly shouldn't feel worse about yourself.
Yeah.
And the other part was consistency, right? So consistency means how often are you interacting with them? So it doesn't have to be I think a lot of people think, it has to be this great big group mom gatherings or a girls. It doesn't have to be that. It could be watching Little League together, but sitting together and talking and chatting and laughing, volunteering together at a school function or a church. I wound up meeting an incredibly close group of women at a women's Bible study at my church. And we are all so different. You would put us together, you would never think we would even have conversations with each other. But because we did this Bible study together, we became incredibly close, right? So you have to devote time, but it doesn't have to be this big, huge 5-hour trip all at once. It could be little incremental moments that kind of build that trust, that support, that love that can be there.
Yeah.
And the other is that you have to be able to be vulnerable around the people who are going to be your true support network. So I interviewed moms who didn't feel about showing the cracks in the Instagram photos. They couldn't share their real struggles or what they're really going through because they didn't want to look bad or they didn't want to be Debbie Downer. They didn't know how their friends would react. I said, well, those aren't really your friends. Those are acquaintances who have babies too. And you should be able to share their ups and your downs and feel that someone's listening, even if they don't have solutions, but listening, that they care about what's happening to you. So if you don't feel safe enough to be vulnerable, that's a problem. And that's not really the friendship that you need. So I think that if we start looking at, we can have criteria for our friends. I don't want us to feel so desperate for companionship we have the wrong friends, because what happens is if you wind up becoming friends with people who make you feel worse, who add a bit of toxicity to your life, that's worse than having no friends at all.
Yes.
And then you have to go through the dissolution of those relationships when you do get to the point where you're like, that's not right. And I've been through that. And I remember like being in one of those situational groups of women where I decided like these are going to be my people because I desperately need people and I have a baby and I don't know anybody here and I just needed it. And I was sitting at a lunch and I mean, we were just having, it was, with all our kids and I was just having a day with my kid where things were hard. And I looked at them and I said, don't you wish sometimes they would just act like people? Like they're acting like babies. And I just want him to be a people for a minute.
Yeah.
And they all were like, oh, you're so funny. But then one looked at me and she said, I can't believe you would say that about your he's a baby. And in my mind, I was like, well, this is not going to work. Like, okay, these aren't my people.
Can I get my check?
Then I had to like unravel that and step away from that group, which was awkward and hard. And, but I'm like, if I can't sit at a table and be like, my God, I'm tired of bibs and high chairs and puffs. And, I just be a person for 5 minutes. They were like, that's wrong.
And what's wrong with saying that? Like, I honestly, like, I say that and I'm like, Tina, I'm like, oh my God, please let this prefrontal cortex develop faster than normal. I can't take it. Like, I just can't take it. But that's okay. Like, I want that conversation, right? Because it makes me feel like, okay, I'm not the only one going crazy here. And like, we can relate to each other. And I don't know why, as mothers, and even the motherhood culture within mothers, is that you're not allowed to be real like that, or is there's this like competition for who's the most together in some circles, and I'm like, I'm going to lose that every time, and I'm happy to do so.
And we cannot talk about mom friendships without me getting on my soapbox about let's elevate the conversation, ladies. Like we can talk about more than our kids. And I talk about how many brilliant, amazing women are in that school pickup line that I did not have a clue for 6 years at that elementary school. What they did before they were there, what they did when they were not in the pickup line, like what their passions were, what kind of things that they would love to do to volunteer. And I mean, there's just so many connections to be made. Not that I think you need to be, networking the pickup line all the time, but I mean, there's so many different opportunities and things that you might learn about or connections that you might make if you talk more about than what your kid is taking to, the field trip that week. So
it's absolutely true. Like I wound up, and it took years to develop this group of friends, and it's really funny. I'll tell you guys this. So there are 5 of us, and some of us work, some of us are at home, stay at home moms.
Everybody's
which is
at
also
home.
work. Everyone's on, but it's all work, because when I was home with my kid, I was like, oh my God, I gotta get back to work. This is killing me. Like this is so much harder than office politics. I have to go back to work. But we would meet at this great cafe in New York called Buvette, which is really near to our kids' school. And I would meet before I go off to write. And we were there, and one of the dads was like, oh, I see you guys all the time. You guys are the bitches of Buvette. And we were like, oh, that's kind of a little insulting. But then we're like, yeah, we're the Bobs. We started calling ourselves the Bobs. And we coffee like 3 days a week, quick coffee, catching up. And when we're talking about politics, the Real Housewives, which is it's an unfortunate obsession, but it is my obsession.
We don't judge.
Yeah. Gossip. Look, it's a mix of everything. And it's not, we don't always all agree, and it's not about perfect alignment, right? It's about like sharing, and also feeling like if I do share something you don't agree with, you're not going to like not talk to me ever again.
Right. And having that space to be Ericka for a minute.
Yeah. You want a place to be yourself, and it sometimes takes a while. I didn't have that. I'll tell you, I didn't have that my first several years of parenting. It was kind of like a trial and error. And I remember I stayed home for a while. I had a mom friend who lived down the hall. She was a stay-at-home mom. Her kid was a little older, and we hung out every day. And when I decided to go back to work, she stopped talking to me. I remember thinking, and I desperately tried, because she had been I wrote about her. She actually kind of helped me when I was in a big slump, and I was sad, and she was there for me. And I didn't want to let that friendship go. But I remember I was late for a coffee. I was rushing back home to meet her for like a lunch. And I said, oh, I'm so sorry. It's like I couldn't get out of a meeting soon enough. And she's just like, I mean, that's your choice. Like, if you don't want to raise your child, she was really kind of nasty and crude about it. And I
Ugh.
thought, okay, well, I guess this is it. Like, she's not my people. And I thought she might be my people, but she wasn't.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
sometimes it
Heartbreaking.
takes a while to, and I'm not saying there won't be hurt feelings. And it's so hard because we've all been through that junior high insecurity of like, who sits with me at the lunch table and
Mhm.
well, who's going to hang out with me? Am I going to get invited to any parties? I'm going to make friends and all that.
Yes.
And that's those same insecure feelings sometimes come to the surface when we're trying to make mom friends.
Yeah.
But if you don't extend yourself, you're not going to find those gems. And
Right.
I feel so lucky
Oh,
to have found
yes.
gems. And it's also really important to note that your friends don't have to be in a big group, right? That's what I found a
Mhm.
lot of moms. So they felt like, well, they wanted this posse all together,
Uh-huh.
right? And that's like the dream, right? Because we see it in the movies, we see it in the TV shows. Well, it doesn't always work that way. Sometimes you have this amazing friend who's also a writer. Like my friend Carmela, she's also a writer, and we have a lot in common. And we love to joke about politics and culture and all of that, right? And I have another friend who is, for her life is all about fashion. She loves, they're not friends, and that's
Mhm.
fine because I
That's
spend
fine.
time with each of them separately. And we have to come to that place in our life where we're okay having different friends that we spend time with, and they don't have to all be together.
Yeah.
Do you think
And
that's social media that's done that to us?
oh,
Like, I didn't watch my
probably.
mother struggle with like, do I have the right posse of friends? Do I,
Right.
does this group overlap with that group? It was there were some clear lines in her life. Like these were her church friends and these were her
Yeah.
neighborhood friends.
Mm.
And very rarely did things overlap. And that was fine. And
Right.
I don't know what it is now that we're all looking for some magical Sex in the City,
Right.
ladies
Yes.
or
We have
whatever.
we have too much information about everyone's life, right? So we're
Yes.
comparing ourselves to everyone's life. So
That's
that's
for
the
sure.
problem with social media. And and of course it's an amazing thing, and we all work through social media and
Yeah.
being able to
Right.
communicate with each other and share
Right.
ideas and everything.
That's how
But
we
it's
found
also
you.
huge source of insecurity. Like, and
Yeah.
then even so, like,
Yes.
I know, like, and this has happened to me, like, you see some of your mom friends hanging out, you're like, why was I invited? Like, why am I not there?
Yeah.
And, or it's like you're watching social media accounts, people who seem to have these perfect vacations or perfect family photos.
Right.
I posted a family photo the other day of my family, and that must have been the 185th photo where at least all of us are kind of looking at the camera and
Yeah.
smiling. That's not every day, right?
Mm-mm.
That's
Yes.
not every moment. So we just have to constantly remind ourselves that that's not real. What we're
Yeah.
posting, all my comments are real, by the way. Go to my Instagram. There, I'm all very honest about motherhood, but like
Yes.
those perfect family photos are not really
Right.
what's
Yeah.
happening.
And as you're
They're
talking
fine.
about all of this, I think everything always comes back to knowing your core values and
Yep.
really
Mhm.
kind of like your friend down the hall who, is judging you for making a choice to go back to work. And there's no right or wrong. And it's all
No,
about knowing your value and what makes sense for you. And I think that helps you know who your people are. I mean, if you
right,
can, they don't have to like check off every box of exactly, what your core values
Right.
are, but that there's
right,
some alignment there that,
Yeah.
they're within the proximity of
right.
what the
There
values are.
there have to be shared values. And I even write personally about a woman who stopped being my friend. And it's because of the way her child behaved. And you don't want to judge, but it's like if someone is allowing their child to hurt your child or be rude or say awful things, you have to
Mhm.
have some kind of shared value.
Yeah.
For some people it didn't bother, maybe it doesn't bother them. They don't care, fine. I cared.
Mhm.
And you want your friends to also care about similar things. That doesn't have to be perfect. I'm not talking about politics. But there has to be some kind of shared values that keep you guys
Yes.
aligned, even when a little hiccup comes in there. So
Yeah.
I have a list of things in the book about like,
Yeah.
you know, it's like a little test, like a little litmus test.
Yep.
Is this the right kind of friend for you? Do you share these kinds of things in common?
Yes.
Have you considered this when you're looking at, who your friend is and whether this is a good person too?
Yeah. I
Gotcha.
mean, we talk more about the moms, but I think that's a good thing even for kids. I mean, that's something to be
Yes.
modeling
Mhm.
and showing our kids that we're actually making some conscious choices about that
Yeah. As you're talking, I was thinking like I did my kids a horrible disservice
by hanging
when,
out with people that you're like,
well,
eh.
no, like a relationship has fizzled for good reason.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
they were involved too on some level in this relationship.
Yeah.
And I have made excuses instead of like, and normally I'm really open and honest with them, but I don't know why. I need to go explore why I didn't talk about this openly with them, but it's a disservice to say, you know what, we had some value places, and that's exactly what it was. Like, it wasn't just that we had a difference of opinions, because you can get through that. It was the way that was handled was not okay. And I think that I should have talked to them about that, because that helps equip them for going out in the world.
It really does, because you also think about this, like when we allow someone in our lives, or we allow certain things to happen around us, do we want our kids to do the same thing? Do we want them feeling that way? Do we want someone to treat them that way? So if they see us kind of allow this in our lives, it gives them an idea like, okay, well, this is something that you put up with, or something that's okay to put up with. And I think I talk a lot about modeling and modeling happiness for ourselves. It's like the stat that you mentioned earlier. It really does affect our kids. And I talk to so many moms who are like, well, I'm miserable, I'm tired, I'm overwhelmed, but my kids are okay. And I'm like,
no, are they?
No. Yeah. Kids at every age group, they show it differently, but it is, if you're overwhelmed and frustrated and tired, it is very unlikely you're being the kind of parent, partner, friend, worker that you want to be.
Yes.
You have to focus on yourself. You have to. And I want it to be more than 2 soul cycle classes a month.
Yes.
Please, let it be more than that. It
Oh,
has to be more. And for some people, it's going to be like a daily exercise routine. Other people's going to be taking an art class. Others will be a new job. Others it's focusing on their romantic life. You have to figure out what that thing is that's missing and work toward it. I tell myself all the time, you know what? If I don't play Matchbox cards with my 5-year-old for a whole hour, he's going to survive. I'm going to give him 15 minutes, and I'm going to go and do this other thing that I want to do. And then I'll go back to him. Like, he's going to survive. He's going to be okay.
They can tell when your brain is melting and you're just shaking it.
And you don't have to be with your kids every minute. Like I can't tell you how many parents, all they do is they spend the whole weekend with their kids. And yes, it is important. I get a lot of flack for this. They're like, don't you want to spend time with your kids? Yes, of course I do. But I can also make room for myself, and my kids are going to be just fine.
Yes,
they are, because if I'm happier, trust me, when mommy is tired, frustrated, and overwhelmed, that's not a fun person to hang out with.
Not good. Exactly. Well, you know, I got to show my little mug here, because our catchphrase for the show is "Make your ellipses count."
Yes.
So for the mom and ... I mean, so yeah, you're a mom, but you're and ... Make those ellipses count. And I just cannot recommend the book enough. Especially, we didn't dive in. We got to go to our look, listen, learns, but we didn't quite get to all the stuff I want to talk to you about. Nurturing your passions, and also, you know, having those outside hobbies. I think those are all the ellipses.
Yes.
Those are all.
Everyone needs to go get the book.
Yeah. So whether you're working outside the home, or working for, we call it paid work and unpaid work, depending on what you are doing. There is some time to start nurturing those passions. If you can't leave the house, you got a newborn who's, you know, on a nap schedule. If you're going to spend 5 minutes scrolling some social media, instead, maybe listen to a podcast that's inspirational, or, you know, watch a TED Talk, or do something that's going to fill you up a little bit more, instead of just numb you out a little bit. So
there's even a masterclass website where you can take a class on so many different disciplines. Yes. I shared the subscription with a friend, because if you can buy one, get one free, the promotion. Yes. And I know I'm doing one on creative writing, and she's doing one on like decorating. You know what I mean? So it's like we're both kind of feeding this, and we got a discount in the process.
I love
That's how
it.
I did it too. I shared one with a friend, and it's so much fun. Our year is up. I kind of want to go back and renew it, because there's so much out there.
I know. And there's so many moms who have numbed out to the point where they just don't even know what they like anymore, or don't even know what they're interested in anymore. So just start exploring that. You don't have to leave the house to do that.
And it's an overwhelming thought sometimes, but I write about how to find help with childcare, how to prioritize this without guilt. There are ways to do it, I promise you, and your life will be better for it. You deserve to be back on the top of your to-do list.
Oh,
that's
a perfect quote.
That is the most perfect quote.
Yes.
I'm also going to write that down and put it on my mirror. I just think that everyone needs to repeat that to themselves every day.
And this is usually when I would show a copy of the book, but it's on my Kindle this time. So that doesn't look very cool. So we will, if you were watching the YouTube video, we're going to put an overlay of the book on there. And of course, we'll have links to it in the show notes. But where's the best place for people to follow you and learn more about you that we can link to in the show notes as well?
Yeah, you should definitely follow my Instagram. It's what I update constantly, from my speaking engagements to research I find that I think is fascinating and helpful for moms, to even just fun memes that about like how tired I am.
Yeah.
Um, and any appearances I have, but also just what's current, what's happening in mommydom, right?
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
so it's at Ericka Souter is my Instagram. And I also have a website where you can see like television appearances and articles that I've written, and that's ericcasuter.com. But yeah, it's like I thank goodness I love what I do
Yes.
because I'm fully immersed in this world.
Oh,
Yes.
and we're
We
so
get that.
grateful that you have moved away from the sexiest men of the world and the Kim Kardashians and put that energy into helping inspire other moms to find their passions and their interests, because I don't know, that's our mission. I mean, that's what the whole
Yeah.
podcast is about. That's what we
Yeah.
really want to make
And I
sure.
love that. I love that. And I love because it gives you space. You know what I mean? Because a lot of people feel like, okay, now I'm so and so's mom. And you're forever
Mhm.
going to be known as so and so's mom, but that's not the end of the story.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah.
you got some more chapters to write there, sister. So
Exactly.
I once got a business card from someone that said they were, I can't remember his name, but like Joey's mom. That
oh
was her
no.
business card. And it
Oh
was to
no.
set up play dates and stuff, which I was never
Yes.
great at anyway. And I never loved, and I did not want to do play dates. And that's a whole other podcast. But yeah, I was like, I mean,
Yeah.
I did introduce myself to people from school and stuff and be like, well, I'm this kid's
Yeah.
mom.
Yeah.
But I didn't want my card to be. Yeah.
Submit your identity of that identity on a business
Yes.
card. I'm like, wow.
I
Yeah.
was
But
that mom.
to be fair, first there's a small percentage of women I interviewed who that is who they wanted and needed to be. I
That
personally
made
think
them
there's going to
happy.
come a time when that changes, when your kid doesn't need you as much.
Yeah.
Right.
But first, because and then we don't prepare enough for that moment when your kid doesn't want you picking them up from school, doesn't want you following them around the mall, doesn't want you to, we gotta like prepare ourselves.
Yeah.
But for some people, I try to be respectful of people's needs and wants in that time. Like we talked to women who didn't want to do anything more. They didn't want to take on hobbies. They didn't want to create anything that was just on their own. I should follow up now and like
See how they're doing.
see what's happening. But
Are you hanging in there?
Are you okay? Knock
Yes,
twice if you need
Blink
help.
once. Yeah.
I
Blink
know.
once if you need help.
exactly.
Oh my
Exactly.
goodness. I wish someone would have checked on me. Oh,
Right. It's just a good lesson learned. Like, check on your friends, check on
Mhm.
the next door neighbor who just had a baby, check on people.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's so true.
Because most of us aren't okay.
And you just kind of just want this acknowledgement that like you're still in there, like that you're
Yes.
still, but yeah.
Oh, oh my
Oh,
goodness. Is it time for the look,
so much
listen,
goodness.
learn,
It's time
Missy?
for Look, Listen, Learns.
All
Yeah.
And if
right.
you are listening to this show for the first time ever, Look, Listen, Learn is just our chance to talk about something we've watched or read or listened to, or this week I'm going to talk about a game I played. Like, it can be anything from the silly to the completely mind-blowing, like universe-altering, serious, whatever you're doing this week. And we don't usually put our guests in the hot seat first. So Suzanne, you're in the hot seat. What are you listening and learning?
Okay. Well, I am definitely not in the earth shattering. Although no, it is outer space related. Space Force season 2. It's really intellectually stimulating. It's the silliest show.
It's so silly.
Oh my God, it's so funny though. It's got Steve Carell, John Malkovich. I mean, who would think
Oh,
putting
wow.
those two together? And John Malkovich actually ends up stealing the scene sometimes.
Totally.
even
He's
with-
amazing in
Oh,
it, I
he's
think.
So
Yeah.
funny. And then Ben Schwartz, who I feel like we just talked about him from After Party. That's
After
another
Party.
show I've been watching with him, who is AKA John Ralphio from Parks and Rec. I love him so much. And so that season 2 just started, and it is beyond silly. It's just hilarious, and it really is. I think it came about when didn't Trump have a space force, and it was just,
Yeah.
Yes,
Yes.
it came, and they like
Yes.
made it so fast. They were like, "This happened. We're seizing it. We're making a
Yes.
show about this ridiculousness."
So it's kind of playing off that. And I think they ended season 1. There was like a battle on the moon between the USA and China. And like this season is just kind of the
Oh my gosh.
fallout from what happened after this moon war, basically. So that has just been really fun. If someone just it's such a serious time right now. I mean, the news, we are, I'll have to look at when this is going, but yeah, Russia's invading Ukraine right now. And
Yeah.
we need to be in the know and be aware of our fellow humans and things that are going on that are very serious. But then every once in a while, we just need to Space Force for a second
Yes.
and just take a breath. And then let's see, other traumas of the world. I accidentally watched Euphoria, which
Oh,
don't,
yeah.
don't do. I mean, it's so good. And
It
I
almost
think,
feels like that would be birth control for people. Like, this is what's going to happen.
I
No,
know,
I'm not going to have any kids.
oh my God.
I know. I think if I had seen it before I had children, I'd be like, no, thank you.
Holy crap. You know, it was one of those because people have been listening. I've been doing this marathon, I did the half marathon run, but I've also been doing a marathon bedroom painting thing where I've just been watching until it rolls into the next show. And so it kind of rolled into Euphoria. And I was like, okay, I've been hearing about it. And I love Zendaya. And I was just like, okay. Oh my God. I mean, I've got a 16-year-old daughter and she's locked out of HBO, but I'm sure she's watching it at friends' houses. I'm sure she's seen clips of it on YouTube or whatever. And oh Lord, Zoe, I'm just so sorry. This is not real life. I mean, I know it's probably closer to teenage real life than what we think teenage real life is. But I also see my daughter and her friends and the people in our community, and it's just so sensationalized. And I'm sure it's some kids' reality out there, but holy shit.
Sure.
I mean, it is not for the faint of heart. It is, it triggered a lot of like, woo. So I'm just a warning. I mean, follow common sense media if you're thinking of watching it, or let your kid watch it. You're like, oh, it's the nice girl from Spider-Man's in it. Like, no. Just watch out. There's an alert. So
there's some scary moments, and this scary. It seems like it would scare teens. I would think it would scare them, to be honest. But
yes. Like, I don't want to leave the house. COVID's great. I could have just stayed home and
not do this terrifying stuff.
No, it's scary out there.
Ooh, awful.
Oh, but yes. Okay. So are you? Did we pre-warn you about Look, Listen, Learn?
Yeah.
Ericka?
Yeah.
Are you good?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
I'm ready.
All right.
You're up.
Okay. Well, I'm obsessed with The Gilded Age, which is the new show by the creator of Downton Abbey.
Mm-hmm.
And the Gilded Age follows that era and like kind of Victorian era in New York, I guess it is.
Yes.
And I'm just so obsessed because I live in New York and I live near where all those mansions once were. And I'm like obsessed that they were there. So a lot of them have been torn down, but when I pass now, I see some of them have been repurposed to other things.
Yes.
And it's so fascinating, but also to think about how, I think they did a really great job of showing how it was for Black people during the era.
Yes.
And it's just so amazing. And Christine Baranski, so hilarious, so funny. I just can't even do it.
I love her.
Amazing. But then also then it made me obsessed with like, okay, it's based on the Vanderbilts. I don't know enough about this history. So I'm reading Anderson Cooper's book, Vanderbilt, because his mother was a Vanderbilt. Yeah.
Yes.
And so that's what I'm looking and reading. Like I'm watching the show and reading the history because I'm kind of fascinated about this whole robber baron age. And we think of someone like the Vanderbilts or, I don't know, the Guggenheims or whoever. We think of, this is like what it meant to be like the height of society. They weren't. They were new money and they were totally like considered trash because they were new money. So it's just kind of funny, weird, and interesting to kind of read that. So I feel like that has been my break from reality lately, because most of what I read is, I also listen to The Daily every single day, which is the New York Times podcast, which is my dose of like my, oh shit, the world is in a scary place.
Yes.
But so that's what those three things I'm obsessed with right now.
Oh, love.
So the Anderson Cooper book, I haven't read it yet. It's on my list. Good? Like worth the read?
I think so. Of course, I'm frothing at the bit over the salacious parts, and they're not enough of those because it's Anderson Cooper and he's very like journalistic and,
Right.
So, I love the stories about how the mom controlled the daughter and had her marry royalty in English, and they had a guard outside the girl's room because she would run away because she was so unhappy at the prospect of marrying this duke. So of course I'm like, juicy. This is exciting. This is juicy.
Yes.
But it is really good. He really breaks down how they thought, what their lives were like, and how they got there. Like he starts from like when they immigrated, the first Vanderbilt immigrated, here. And so it's really, I think it's really good. It's really interesting.
Huh.
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to keep it on the
Okay.
list.
Oh yeah. We just started watching that. We just got to it may only be the first episode where the lady from The Leftovers. I just know people from what they were in before.
Right.
And she's the new money that had the big party that no one showed up to.
No one showed up.
And I was just like,
I mean, brutal. People are
I
so
know. I
brutal.
felt that in every cell in my being. I was like, that's just gotta hurt so bad.
Yeah.
Look at the place I'd show up. I'm like, oh.
Oh, she went to bed that night. She's like, I'm burning this place down. Like I'm so excited to see the rest of it.
See what's next.
I will get revenge.
Yeah.
They
Yeah,
get
just
revenge. So
solidified.
watch.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, Missy. Oh, do you have, let's see, we just hit the hour. Are you okay to hear Missy's look, listen, learn?
Yeah, I have a couple more minutes. I want to hear her. I got to hear her.
Okay, cool.
I'll try to go as fast as I can.
Go,
So my
Missy.
look is the movie Spencer with Kristen Stewart about Princess Diana, and it's all set at Christmas time when things are just. And I was not expecting to be blown away by Kristen Stewart's Princess Diana, but I am.
Yeah.
Yes, it was so good.
So good. So good.
Good for
Yeah.
her.
I mean, I found it like I couldn't take my eyes off of her.
Yeah.
So I recommend watching it. It's very quiet. There's not as much dialogue as I like. I'm a story girl and I want people to talk. There's a lot of like, music played over just scenery, but it's beautiful.
Yeah.
So that's my look. My listen is yacht rock. And
You
I
and
was
Wendy.
just on, Wendy does love yacht rock.
Yes.
I was just on a girls trip and one of the women there had never heard of yacht rock. And so somebody put it on and she was like, this is amazing. This is the backseat of my parents' station wagon my entire childhood. Like,
Oh my gosh.
Indeed. So if you just like feel nostalgic and want to just sing along with every song that comes on, find your yacht rock station.
I gotta admit, I still
And-
don't even really know what qualifies as yacht rock. So
Yeah,
we'll have
I
to
know
link
it's a
to
little loose. It's
Okay.
mostly just that it's like a time frame. It's like from 1973 maybe to like 1982, something in there.
I'm picturing Barry
okay.
Manilow.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, kind of that kind of stuff.
Okay.
Doobie Brothers, every song. Every song comes on, you're like, yes, I know this. I don't know how I know this, but I know this song. And it's not a learn. I don't know what it is, but we got a game for Christmas that we have played several times since. It's called Telestrations. And it is like telephone meets Pictionary. So everyone gets a word and they draw it and then they pass it to the next person and that person guesses what it is and they pass the word on. And then by the time it comes back to you, you have all these alternate guesses of like the word, the picture, the word, the picture. And we've played it with kids. We've played it with grownups. There is an after dark version that some friends of ours ordered after we played as grownups. They're like, we're getting the after dark version. I haven't played that yet, but it looks pretty fun.
Oh, that sounds awesome.
I've
But
never
every
heard
group
that.
we've
Awesome.
played it with leads to like face hurting, crying, laughter. And it's great. It's great. It's so good. So I highly recommend that because yes, we need a break in our world. So when you need a break from the heaviness, gather up your people and play some telestrations.
Well,
There you go.
listen to yacht rock. I love it.
And listen to yacht rock. I mean, it's a really nice evening, actually.
Oh my gosh, I'm so sad this is coming to an end. I want you guys to be my best friends.
Same. We have to talk again. We only scratched the surface of
I know
all of this.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
Well, we're
and,
so happy to meet you and know you and so thrilled
Yes.
with what you're putting out in the world.
and
Thank
everyone
you.
listening, seriously, you need, it doesn't matter how old your kids are. You need
No.
to have how to have a kid and a life, a survival guide. Because you know what, there's probably some empty nesters out there even still who haven't kicked back into high gear of being themselves. So y'all, it's
Yeah.
never too late. Go
It's
go
never
get
too
this
late.
book.
And stick a couple copies in your gift stash for when you need a gift for somebody who's having a baby.
Exactly. Oh, such good information. So fun hearing all your fun stories. I love having like this 6 degrees of separation of the sexiest man of the year. So,
That's what I'd really, off the record, I would like to hear like who were the best sexiest men to interview, who were the not so sexy men to interview.
no,
I bet you got
we're
some
still
stories.
recording, Missy. You're gonna get.
I
in
know, turn
trouble.
it off.
Oh
I
my
do have
gosh.
some stories.
I bet
my-
you do.
goodness. Okay. Yeah, we're gonna have to do that one off the record then. Okay.
Right.
We can say our goodbyes and then talk.
Yeah. Turn it
All
off.
right. Okay. Well, let's do our goodbyes then. We can pretend that I'll turn
Thank
off
you
the
so much
recording.
for being here.
Yes.
Thank you for having
so
me.
much. It's so good to meet you. Have a great day.
You too. Bye.
Bye. Thank you so much for joining us for the Mom and podcast. We hope you enjoyed today's show, and if you know someone else who could benefit from the episode, please be sure and share it with them. And while we're begging, please subscribe and rate us wherever it is you listen to podcasts. You can find links to all the things we discussed today in our show notes or over at our website, momandpodcast.com, with the A-N-D spelled out. In between shows, find us over at the socials, including our private Mom and Community Facebook group. The links to that group and all of our socials can be found at momandpodcast.com. Thank you so much for your support. We appreciate you more than you know. Now go out there and make your ellipses count.